Hello everyone, this is Suresh from Azure ADB. Today our topic is how to use concat_ws function in PySpark. So this function we mainly used to concatenate multiple input string columns into single string column using a specified separator. So in this function, ws concat_ws. So this ws stands for with separator. So concatenates multiple columns with a separator. So concat_ws, it whenever you apply this function on columns, if the columns have nulls, it automatically skips null values. But in case of concat function, so whenever we have null, the result will be null. But in this case, it will skip the nulls. So how nulls will handle in this concat_ws? So unlike the basic concat function, ws_ws ignores null values in the input columns, meaning no separator is added for missing values, which helps avoid entire row becoming null. Suppose in concat function, whenever you are doing two columns uh, into concat, suppose one column has null value and the other column has string value, your output will become null. But in case of concat_ws, if you have first column null, it ignores that first column null, it will give you result as second column string value. So that we'll see with example now. So before that, the syntax we'll see concat_ws, and inside that we need to pass separator and star calls. So star calls means the number of columns we want to apply concat_ws. So sep is the separator, a string literal we are using for separator. So this separator we can use example like comma, space, and colon, semicolon, or or condition means pipeline condition. So we can use different separators here. And star calls means the columns you want to concatenate. So star calls means you can apply here multiple columns. So this can be specified as individual column objects or dynamically using the list of column names with the asterisk to unpack them. So what you can do is you can in double quotes, you can write individual column names, the number of columns you can add it, or otherwise you can explicitly define one list and inside list you add all your columns and that list you can pass like this asterisk calls. So this I will show you with this example. So this video mainly covers these topics. So how to combine multiple string columns and concat_ws with null values and empty strings. So if you have null values and empty strings, then how it will handle this function and how to handle empty string explicitly and how to concatenate numeric and string columns. Suppose you have one numeric column and one string column, then how to concatenate and how to concatenate array column using concat_ws and how to create composite keys. So this is the main useful and in real-time projects. So this is the main purpose of this function. Concat_ws will use mainly for creating composite keys. You can say composite key or surrogate key, we can say. So here what I'm doing, first I'm importing required functions. So concat_ws, call and delete. So first what I'm doing, first my scenario is how to combine multiple string columns. So for this I created one sample data frame. So this is my sample data frame. I have this data and I have this many columns here. So ID, year, country, gender, and salary. And on top of this data frame, what I'm doing here is here df underscore 01 is our this sample data frame. On top of that, I'm using select. And in this select, I'm selecting only these three columns: ID, year, country. ID, year, country. So only first three columns I'm selecting. And later what I'm doing, by applying concat underscore ws, I'm creating two more columns. So one is combined underscore key space. Second is combined key underscore. So here how I'm doing concatenate. If you observe in a concat function, so you will directly mention two columns. So there you can use, you can apply without mentioning separator or with mentioning separator. So in concat function, if you want to mention separator, you need to use lit function there. But here in concat underscore ws, first you need to define your separator. So here my separator is empty space. And here my separator is underscore. And here my separator is space. And I'm trying to apply concatenate on these three columns. And here also same, I'm applying on these three columns, but only difference is separator is difference. Here it is space, here it is underscore. And how it works is, so I'm applying on these three columns: ID, year, country. ID, year, country. So between each column value, my separator is space. That means A1 space 2024 space India, and A2 space 2025 space ESC, and so on for all the for remaining rows. And if you see about this separator, it will generate one more column with separator underscore. So how it is? A1 underscore 2024 underscore India. A2 underscore 2025 underscore ESC. So like this, it will do concatenation. If you see here, so first it is using space. So here my separator is a space. So that is why I given column name as combined underscore key underscore space. And here underscore. So that means my separator is, here my separator is space and here my separator is underscore. So as I told here, A1, see here A1 space 2024 space India. If you see here, A2 space 2025 space USA. And similar way, if you see here, A1, see here A1 underscore 2024 underscore India. And for this one, A2 underscore 2025 underscore USA. And it will go for remaining rows also. And if you see data types, see my ID, year, country. So all are string data type. So that's why we're not getting any problem while doing concat underscore ws. Same thing I mentioned here. So create new column with a space between each column value. And these are all the string columns I selected. So here all these three are string columns, and output it generated string columns. So that is combined underscore key underscore space, combined underscore key underscore underscore. So these two new columns are generated. So next, so here what I did, I used a select method. If you observe here, I given heading like I used select method here. So there is a minor code change will be there between select and with column. So in select, I'm writing the column names are required out of all this data frame. I selected only required columns, And inside that I written this concat function. Since it is select, we need to add the alias here. So if you don't use alias, it will give its own column name like concat underscore ws id year country. So like that it will give. So to avoid that, so we had to give alias uh, column name. So next we'll see how to do same thing by using with column. So on top of main data frame, I'm using with column. So whenever you use with column, we need to define the column name here. So since I'm generating new columns here, so I give a new column name as combined underscore key underscore space, and this syntax is same. Since we defined a column name here, so like select, no need to mention alias here. So similar way, one more with column to add one more new column, that is combined underscore key underscore underscore. And here I written the syntax, means code. So concat underscore ws here it is underscore, here it is space. And after generating two columns, so now what will happen? My df, original df is this one. So whenever you add with column, you will get this whole data frame. That means all the columns you will get. On top of that, it will add these two columns. So on top of that, these two columns will get added. But my requirement is only these three columns and these two new columns. And the remaining two columns, I don't want it. I think two or three. These two columns, I don't want it. So what I'm doing after creating new columns by using with column, finally I used select. So in select, I given only these three columns and two new columns. So that's why I'm getting only these columns. Okay, so this is using with column method. So next what I'm doing, here my separator is comma, then space. So same thing, I'm selecting same columns here. Here what happening, so these things are same string columns. These three are string columns, and I'm generating one new column, that also string column, that is combined key column. So that means after doing concatenation, you will get string column because input also string column. So here only difference is create a new column with a space between each column value, because since I'm giving separator as comma and space. So now what will happen? It will generate one column, this one, that is combined underscore key underscore comma. And on top of that, since I'm using lit function here, it will generate one more column. So here what I'm doing, lit call of salary into 2. That means I have one salary column in my existing data frame. This data frame, this particular column, I'm multiplying with 2. So that means each value, it is multiplied with 2. So that column, I given column name as new underscore salary in alias. So totally two columns I'm generating, two new columns I'm generating. If you see here, based on these three columns, after applying this concat underscore ws, it will generate like this. See, first one is A1 and my separator is comma space. See here, comma space, next 2024 and comma space, and after that India. And a similar way here also, A2 comma space, A2 comma space, 2025 comma space ESC. Okay, it will go so on. And this one, what will happen? Since I given new column name, new underscore salary. So I'm multiplying all the values by 2 on this salary column. So now in new column, what will happen? First, this 25,000, it will multiply with 2. So we are getting 50,000. So 35,000 multiplied with 2, 70,000. And 33,000 multiplied with 2, 66,000. And so on. Okay, so this is one more way. And next one is how to handle null values and empty strings. So whenever you apply concat underscore ws, how the result will be for null values and empty strings. So I already made one video how to use concat function. So in that I explained for similar kind of scenarios. That means whenever we have null values and empty strings, how the output comes. So you can compare that one and this one here. So null columns are skipped automatically. So that means if you see here sample data frame, I have wherever none is there, I will get in output nulls. And wherever I have double quote, that means empty, there I will get empty string. So here my empty values. So in case of concat, suppose if I do concat on these two columns, year and country, in concat what will come? 2024 India. And when it comes to here, whenever null is there, your result will be null. So even though here string is there, your result will come null in case of concat. But in case of this one, concat underscore ws, what it telling? So null columns are skipped automatically. That means, so in this null column, null value it will skip, you will get output as ESC. So that is the difference between concat and concat underscore ws. Here what I'm doing, on top of this, our sample data frame, I'm trying to create two new columns. So same thing here, same columns I'm selecting here. My separator also same. For one column space, one more column is underscore. So on top of my data frame, I'm adding two columns. Okay, so here if you see in my input column, input data frame, here I have three columns. Since I have three columns and I required these three columns, after with column, I'm not added select. But in previous case, I added select. Why? Because in my initial data frame, I have 5 columns. Out of 5 columns, I required only 3 columns. So that is the reason I used their select statement. Since my initial data frame is 3 columns and I want those 3 columns here, that is the reason I'm not using select statement here. Since I'm using two with columns, so it will add two new columns here. That is this one and this one. Combined underscore key underscore space, combined underscore key underscore underscore. So now we'll see one by one what will happen in case of concat underscore ws. If you see this one, first one is space. So your result will be same as previous scenario. So A1 space 2024 space India. Since here separator is underscore, A1 underscore 2024 underscore India. So where difference comes is, so we'll mainly concentrate on wherever we have null and wherever we have empty string. Because these scenarios we already covered in previous cell. So now total we are concatenating 3 columns. So in this, one null value is there. So now what will happens, it will skip this null value and it will concat remaining these 2 columns. See here by using space as the separator, A2 space ESA. And by using underscore A2 underscore ESA. So it is skipping null value. Okay, and there is one more point mentioned here. I think initial discussion. So here somewhere mentioned like it will ignore underscores. With the separators, keeps null values, ignores null values in the input columns, meaning no separator is added for missing values. So which helps avoid entire row becoming nulls. So it means, so wherever null is there, see here, normally how it comes, A2 underscore null underscore ESC. Okay, so if you ignore this value, what it should come actually, A2 underscore, and since we are neglecting this one, null underscore ESC. So that we are getting A2 underscore ESC. And in case of this one, A3 underscore 2023, and since it ignoring null, so we are getting only this much. So A3 underscore 2023. See, since separator is there between this and this, but still it is not adding here because it ignoring this null value. So we are getting A3 underscore 2023 only. And similar way here, it ignoring null here. So normally, as part of separator as underscore, it should start with underscore 2021 underscore Norway. But concat this function, what it does is that first underscore it will ignore. So it will generate only 2021 underscore Norway. And a similar way here also. So A7 underscore 2019. But in case of empty string, if you see here, this is empty string. And if you see here separator is space. Since it is empty string and separator is space, you will see here initially you have space and 2018, and after that you have space Spain. And if you come here, this is empty space, and here separator is underscore empty space underscore 2018 underscore Spain. So here, since this is empty string, it considering this separator also underscore. But if you see in case of null value, it not generating like this. See it ignoring here underscore. So that is the difference between null and empty string. And if you come here, A9 underscore Italy. And here, and if you observe here, A9 empty string China. If you see space, so first one is A10 and our separator is empty space. And since we have empty space here, you will get one more space and China. But if you see here, underscore, see here A10 underscore, since we have empty string, so this empty string, it not considering here A10 underscore, and after empty string, it considering one more underscore China. But in case of null value for same scenario, if you see here, whenever you have null value, you are getting only one underscore. That means it ignoring this value and separator also. But whenever you have empty string, the separator remains. So you have two underscores here. So this is the way it will handle nulls and empty strings. So next scenario is handling empty strings explicitly. So concat underscore WS skips null, not empty strings. So that is the thing here. So nulls it will skip here, but whenever you have empty string, it don't skip. It will consider that empty value also. So we'll see scenario for this. So on top of that, this data frame. So on top of my sample data frame, what I'm doing, I'm trying to create three new columns here. So one is full name with space. So that means here I'm using separator as space. If you see here concat underscore ws, here I'm using space as the separator. And similar way, one more column, full name underscore under. So that means here I'm using separator as underscore. And here one more is combined key underscore. So he underscore means here I'm using underscore as the separator and I'm combining multiple columns. So this one I will try to reduce here to, I will move to new line so that it will looks, yeah. So similar way, I will move this also. This is concat. So concat, I will move down. And similar way, I'll move this when condition also. And I'll move this line also. Okay. So now we have total three columns with three different separators. And if you see here, here underscore is the separator and I'm using direct three columns. So that we already saw how what output will get. Okay, by using underscore. So these things and all we saw. So whenever empty space comes, it will consider underscore also. And whenever empty string is between, we'll get double underscores. So this scenario we already saw in previous cell. What newly we'll see is these two columns. So here full name underscore space. So that is this one. So here I'm using separator as empty space. So instead of directly concatenating these columns, what I'm doing is I'm using when and otherwise condition. So that means first what condition I'm giving in when, if column ID is equal to empty string, then I want to replace with none. So that means first it will check in ID column. If it is found any, if it found any empty string value, suppose if you see here, this is empty string. So then what it does is it will replace this empty string with null. So that means like this here we'll get null. Okay, so if we don't have empty string, then use ID value only. So that means in otherwise condition, what it given is, suppose it will check one by one. So here first value is this is not empty string, this is non-string. So what will happen, since when condition is not satisfied, since this condition is not satisfied, it will go to otherwise condition and it will fill with ID value only. That means same value it will return. So like this one by one it will check. So even null also it is not there, since we mentioned empty string, so you will get null only. So only whenever we have empty string, that string it will replace with null values. So that is first condition. Second one is when call of year. Suppose in year column, if it finds any empty string, then it will replace with null value. So it will check one by one. So only this particular value we have empty string. So now this it will replace with null value. So that is this one. Next, one more when condition is, it will go to country column and it will check if it is there any empty string value. If you go to country column, so here we don't have any empty string, we'll get same as it is. So next it will come to this with column. So here my separator is underscore. And here what condition is given? I think same conditions are given and columns also same. So it will go to ID column. If it is found any empty string, it will replace with none. So if it is non-string value, it will retain same ID and so on for these columns also. And for third column, we already discussed this one. So now we'll see these columns, how output is generating. So now this we don't have any problem. So we'll get like this, between each value, we'll get space here. Here you will get underscores here. So when we come to here, so A2 space ESA. So A2 space ESA, here A2 underscore ESA. So this all we discussed already up to here. Only thing we need to discuss this one. Why? Because by using when and otherwise condition, this empty string we replaced with null value. So now this is null value. Since it is null, it will ignore this value. And what will get output? 2018 space Spain. 2018 underscore Spain. But if you see in your previous case, so 2018 Spain, 2018 underscore Spain. But if you see in previous case, see here, since it is empty string, so we are getting empty space here. But after replacing with null value, we are not getting this space and we are getting 2018 space Spain. And similar way here, since this is empty string, we are getting separator also. So underscore 2018 underscore Spain. But after replacing with null, we are getting this value without space and here without this underscore. So that is the difference if you replace your empty string with null values. And I think similar way here also. So here A10, this is empty string and it is replaced with null. Since it is null value, it will ignore. So what you will get output? A10 space China and here A10 underscore China. If same thing, if you see in previous scenario, see here it is empty string. What it does is A10 space, here you will get a double space. Okay, since our separator space is there and here empty string also is there. And if you see here A10, and since it considers empty space also as one value, so you will get here one underscore, here one underscore. So here you are getting A10 underscore underscore China. But if you see here, see A10 only one underscore. Okay, and here you are getting only one empty space. So that is the difference. So next, we'll see how to concatenate numeric and string columns. So as I told initial, so whenever you are doing concatenate function, both columns should be same data type. Suppose in case if you have two different data types, then how to handle it? So in concatenate underscore WS, what it does is Spark automatically casts number into strings. But in case of concat function, you need to manually cast it to string column. You need to manually convert this numeric column to string column. Then you need to do concatenate with other string column. But in case of concat underscore WS, Spark automatically cache number into strings. So here no need to do cache the function. So here this is my sample data frame. See here ID, product, price. So here what I'm doing. So here I'm creating three more columns. So one is separator as space, one more is separator as underscore, one more is separator as backslash. If you see here, space. So starting and ending space is there, and this semicolon line is there. Simple line is there. So space, simple line, and space. And if you see here, this is underscore. And here space is there, backslash, and space. And we are doing concatenating on three columns. For all the scenarios, we are doing concatenate on these three columns. So now we'll see how the output looks. Okay, so now what it does is, so my first column is with separator as space, lines, and space. If you see output here, see this is my first column, and it will do concatenate on these three columns. So 101, since I given first space, so 101 space and line and space, and this second column value ADLS, and again space and this line and space and this value. Okay, so like this it will generate for remaining values also, means for remaining rows also. So whenever you have underscore, see I given simply underscore, only underscore. So now what will happen? 101 underscore ADLS underscore this value 55,000. And here 102 underscore airflow underscore 25,000. And if you see backslash, first space is there, backslash space is there. So if you see this particular case, 101 space, see 101 space, backslash, space, this ADLS, space, backslash, space, this 55,000. And a similar way here also, 102 space, backslash, airflow, space, backslash, space, 25,000, and so on. Okay, so like this, it will generate. So based on your separator. So next we'll see how to concatenate array column using concat underscore WS. So this is mainly useful when flattening arrays. If you want to do flattening array, you can do concatenate underscore WS. If you see here a data frame, I have my sample data frame. So here I have two columns. One is ID and skills. In ID, if you see numeric numbers are there. And if you see in skills, my value is array. So I have all arrays are there. So if you want to make flatten this array, so normally we have two options. So one is we can use explode method. So that is the common way we'll do explode. But here I'm trying with concat underscore WS. So we'll see how it will flatten by using concat underscore WS. So if you expand this, so this is array. So starting and ending square bracket means that is array. And each value, it is given index as 0, 1, 2. So array index will start from 0. This is 1, this is 1, this is 2. 0, 1, 2. So same thing it coming here. Array 0, 1, 2 and that relevant values. So now this is my sample data frame. On top of that, on top of this data frame, what I'm doing, I'm using with column. So that means I'm creating one new column, that is skills underscore string. Here what I'm doing, concat underscore ws, and first I'm giving separator. So separator is comma space, and I'm using skills. So skills means this one. If you do like this, what will happen? See, it will flatten. If you see, my data type is here is array of string, and if you see here, this is string. And same thing you can observe here also. See, my initial this ID is long, and my second column skills, that is array type, and inside elements. Inside elements means this one, Java, Python, Spark. So those are all string. That means array of string. And my final output, this one, that is string. So now this array of string, it is converted to string type. So what it doing simply, it doing flatten, and since I'm giving comma with the space for between each element, it giving comma with space. Suppose if we see with a different separator, we'll see how it will generate. So this one, I'll try to make I'll try to make with a different separator. So maybe without space, with empty space, I'll try. What I will do, this separator I will remove, comma I will remove. So I will keep empty here. That means without a space. And I will change this name, something like 01. So what I will do, first I will run this data frame, my sample data frame. And what is the advantage here? So whenever you want to do flatten this array, if you're trying with the explode function, you need to import explode function from PySpark.sql.functions. If you want to try with concat underscore ws, you have to import concat underscore ws from PySpark.sql.functions. So that is the difference. In case of explode, no need to mention the separators. So if you simply write explode here, simply if you write explode and inside that column name, that is enough. But in case of concat underscore ws, you need to mention the separator also. So here, since I'm giving empty here, now it will come continuously. So without space, it will come. So first I will import this one, concat underscore ws. So here initially I already imported. First I will try to run this one. Then I will try to run this one. So now I will try to run this one. So now observe the result. See here. So now you are getting without space. See here, Java without space, Python, continuously it coming. So we define separator like this. Maybe I will try with a different separator. Maybe I will give some space here. Maybe I will give space instead of empty is empty. I will give some space here, and we'll see what output we'll get. So between each element, we'll get space here. So here after Java, we are getting space, Python, after that space. Suppose if you change to underscore. So in first condition, what we given separator, comma with space. So here now I tried with empty space. Suppose here I will try with a different value, different separator. So I will comment it out this one. So I will share this notebook in GitHub in description, the path. So you can try with the different separators. So instead of that, I will give space, backslash, space. So if I see here, I will get Java space, backslash, space, Python, space, backslash, space, Spark. So like this, depending on your requirement, you can use the separator. So next we'll see final one, how to create composite keys. So this we can call as surrogate key also. So in real time, so this is the thing we'll use very frequently. So for this, what I'm doing, I'm reading I have one CSV file. That CSV file I'm reading here. And I have this many columns here. See here, this many columns I have. So in this, what I'm doing here is wherever ID is there, like ID, department underscore ID, sub department underscore ID, vehicle underscore ID, vehicle profile underscore ID. So these are all my primary key columns. So I want to do concatenate on these primary columns. So I want to do concatenate on these primary columns, and that I want to use as my surrogate key. So here what I'm doing, so this is my sample data frame. On top of that, I'm using select statement. And since I'm giving hashtag here, that means I want all the columns. I want all the columns from my sample data frame. And additionally, I need this column surrogate underscore key by using concat underscore WS. So in concat underscore WS, what I'm giving, my separator I'm giving as underscore. And here I'm mentioning all my primary key columns. So as I told, all ID columns I mentioned here. So these are all my primary key columns. And so these all columns, if you observe here, all are integer type. So here, these are all integer type columns. So if I do concatenate on these columns, my final output will be, since it is underscore with separator, so integer type, it won't work. So we need to convert to string type. So that is the reason on result of this concat underscore WS, that final result I am converting to string type. Since I'm using select statement here, I'm giving alias here, surrogate underscore key. And if you see this final surrogate underscore key, what we'll get is, this is my first column, 257. My separator is underscore. So 257 underscore 257 underscore 1 underscore 1 underscore 0. And I have one more ID column, that is this one, underscore 6. And this I'm not used. So here up to underscore 6 I'm getting. And similar way, if you see for second row, 264 underscore 264 underscore 1 underscore 0 underscore 0. And one more will come, 264. See here, 264 underscore 264 underscore 1 underscore 0 underscore 0 and 90. 90 is this column, this one. So like this, it will concatenate for all the values. So now this surrogate column, we can use it for further analysis. And method 2 is, so there I used select statement. So instead of that, what I'm doing in select statement, I return all the columns, all the primary columns I return. So in second method, what I'm doing is I'm adding all the columns in one list. That list I'm defining to one variable. So that variable I'm passing here. So here this is sample data frame. Here I'm using select. So earlier I given select star. Okay. So instead of select star, I'm changing the method here. What I'm changing here is first I'm generating surrogate key. So earlier how I given concat underscore ws, separator I given, here I given continuous all the columns, like individual columns I given one by one. If you see here like this one by one column I given. So here what I given, I defined in one variable as list of elements, and this variable I'm calling with hashtag. So since this is list, so we are using hashtag here. So hashtag means it will do unpack this list of elements. Since I'm using select, here I'm using alias as surrogate key. So now what will generate is first it will generate surrogate key. So this explanation is same how it will generate, and remaining columns what I'm doing is in previous code I written hashtag select star. So select star means it will select all the columns from our sample data frame. So instead of star, what I am writing here is I am writing one list compensation here. In this list compensation, what happening? So this is my sample data frame dot columns. So df dot column means what you will get output as list of elements. So that means list of columns. So since I'm using for loop here, so what it will do, it will iterate this list of columns one by one, it will iterate. And since starting I given call C, so call C means call, first C means first column. From list of elements, ID is the first one. So that is call ID. So first output from this, first output you will get ID. That means call ID will get. In second iteration, you will get this one, department ID, and so on. So by using this list compensation, you will get one by one column, it will get added. So why I given list comparison is, so if you want to avoid this hashtag, so this is one more method. So you can follow either of the method. So either you can directly use hashtag, or so yeah, main thing I forget why I used list comparison is in previous code here I mentioned the columns individually one by one. That means without list. But here, this particular primary underscore call underscore mapping, since I mentioned as list of elements, if I use here star, it won't work. Why? Because this is list of elements. This is a string. So it won't accept here. So since I given here list of elements, so here also I need to provide as list of elements. So that is the reason I mentioned like this. Okay, so for both the cases, result will be same. And if you see summary of the use cases, merge columns means first and last column, just adding, merging the columns. So create ID means combine ID, year, country. So all three columns, it will get add. And a dynamic list means array, and inside that star columns. So that means that these columns we need to first we need to define in list of elements. And if you define that variable here, that is star hashtag, it will unpack. And ignore nulls means, so this concat underscore ws function, whenever you have nulls, it will automatically handles and it will ignore the nulls. And ETL keys means, so this is the columns. So that is main primary key columns. And what is key points here we need to remember is, in concat underscore ws, separator is mandatory. But in case of concat, it will work both the cases, with separator or without separator. So for both the cases, it will work. But in case of concat underscore ws, it is mandatory. So it skips null values, not empty strings. It skips only null values. It will retain empty strings. So it works with both strings, numbers, and arrays. So this function mainly used for full name creation and composite keys means surrogate keys, and for address formatting and flattening array columns. Flattening array means we saw array of elements, how we did flattening. That means without using explode, we saw how to explode by using concat underscore ws. So that's all about this video on how to use concat underscore ws. So if you really like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.